Welcome to Marblehead. I'm a member of the local regiment here, organized under John Glover, who's a local ship owner, and a lot of us are fishermen here in town. Well, as British subjects, we've been thinking a lot about what's been going on in Boston and watching all the tumult that's been happening there, and we're a little skeptical about the British regulars. We're also skeptical about the British bringing ships into our harbor, and they brought into the harbor a ship called the Lively and anchored it just out there off the fort. Well, that ship sitting out there at anchor was watching every ship that came in, and one of the ships came in, had a bunch of muskets in it in a box. Those muskets were for us. Well, they held on to that ship for a while. They didn't see the muskets in it, even though they had inspected it. And under the cover of night, we were able to get those muskets ashore. So we're all armed and we're ready for whatever's to come. But I want to tell you about what happened today. Today, another ship came in, the Sea Venture. Well, we didn't think a whole lot of it when it came into the harbor and it anchored under the guns of the Lively. But long about 11 o'clock or so, 11:30, we started to notice a few soldiers, or at least I did, soldiers coming on deck. And when the townspeople started to go to afternoon services, a lot more soldiers came on deck. And they started coming ashore in waves and landing at Holman's Cove. We were watching them though. And there they gathered, and eventually they got under Lieutenant Colonel Leslie, somebody we know well because he was over in Salem for a while and he's been over here. We could see that he was gathering the 64th Regiment of Foot there. They come from Castle William. And they were fixing to do something because they were affixing their bayonets. They put them on top of their muskets and off they went marching through town. We didn't know quite what was up. But as they were marching, I'm told that John Pedrick may have run into them and talked with them. And I think he's run off to Salem to let people in Salem to know that they may be coming for some ammunitions that are stored over there in Salem. I don't want to tell you too much, but there are some cannons over there. And they've been fixing up to get those cannons ready to be used. Not by the British, mind you, not by the regulars, but by us. Whatever happens in Salem, we'll be ready when those regulars come marching back here to Marblehead. We have our muskets and we're set.
Major, fall out skirmishers and let the men take a breather. Gentleman's magazine, you say? Oh, odd finding you here. I've only a moment. You have to understand, this isn't an ordinary powder raid. I'm under orders from General Gage concerning ship's cannons, 12-pounders in fact. Intelligence says that gun carriages are being manufactured at a foundry just beyond the North River from Salem proper, and they're going to be converted to field pieces, so that's our objective. Speed and secrecy, in and out, relieve the colonials of some heavy munitions with which they might do themselves mischief. My men have been below decks on HMS Lively for 9 hours, from Castle William to Marblehead Landing, enduring the stinking bilges so they won't tip off any of these busybodies about the movement of a battalion of regulars. We landed from ship's boats at Marblehead soon after the church bells rang. It was my hope, it being a Sunday, that we'd be able to pass through the town all but unnoticed. You know, the rougher seamen still abed from overindulgence and the pious Puritans at their prayers and church-going. In the event, my skirmishers reported that the men of the town observed the entire landing. So, I ordered the fifes and drums struck up and simply marched the column through. Townsfolk did rag the men a bit as we marched up the street, and, more's the pity, a fair few of them set off to herald our arrival. We've made good progress so far. Men are lightly equipped without their greatcoats and bedrolls to make time, and we're very familiar with the terrain. We were bivouacked in Danvers just last summer. But let's face the facts, the auguries are no longer very auspicious. We've given up the element of surprise, and they may be scrambling to move the guns or hinder our progress even now. I'll tell you the one thing I'm not worried about: any practicable threat to my detachment. The 64th are regulars, warlike and well-drilled. I'm hard-pressed to think of a force in the continent that could stand up to 300 fixed bayonets of these men for very long. In fact, the men are, if anything, a bit too sanguine. It's by virtue of their class and profession. They'd make mincemeat of any colonial mob they came across. Not that anyone wants that. In fact, there's the rub. I was in Boston during the massacre, so-called, and I'm well aware that these rabble-rousers can provoke the steadiest troops. And the last thing, the very last thing I, or General Gage, or our masters in Whitehall want is a political incident. There's a feeling that the next one might set off a powder keg. Nevertheless, orders are to cross the bridge, North River, and try to find those guns, and we are on the King's Highway, so steady the course. We'll cross it, even if we have to press the crossing. And now we really must get on. Major, reform the 64th, column of 4s.
You want me to go indoors? Oh, very well then, I'll go. Well, you hear what I have to say first. I'm Sarah Tarrant, wife of this town, mother to 2 small children here, and my house is close by the North Bridge. I know that the streets of this town are no safe place for a woman when strange soldiers come crawling through our streets. But these are not the King's streets, sir. These are ours. We all know what the women of Boston had to deal with a few years back, what they're dealing with now. And we had our own taste of it when the 64th were quartered here this summer. We know Gage, we know what he is, and we know Leslie too. Son of a lord who thinks he can march his men down the road from Marblehead and take our guns in the midst of our Sabbath day. He's broken the peace of our Sabbath. What should be a day of peace. Broken by the bloody backs marching down the road and the ringing of the bells. Can you hear them? Every church bell in Salem ringing for hours. Ringing from meeting house steeples. Ringing from the churches that pay homage to the king. Ringing from both. What should be a day of rest, a day of silence. Our one day of peace when to dress up, to chat with my friends at dinner between services. But no, instead we'll have regulars marching down the road. You must think that we were born in the woods to be frightened by owls. But the guns are gone. They'll not have them. And each and every one of us can keep a secret. I may not be able to wield any of the weapons that we're hiding. But the womenfolk of Salem know how to keep a secret. I, and our children too. Who do you think it is who's been rolling cartridges these past months? Who do you think it is who keeps the silences that need to be kept? We can match our menfolk for ardor in the service of our country, even though our service is different. And we will guard the guns to the last man and to the last woman.
My name is Captain John Felt of the Salem Militia. As you've undoubtedly heard, Colonel Leslie and a column of British regulars have landed at Marblehead and are making their way to Salem to take cannon from the foundry across the North River. For the better part of a year, in the aftermath of the destruction of tea in Boston, every town in Massachusetts has been pushing back against British tyranny. In fact, Colonel Leslie and Gage came here to Salem in the spring of 1774, but we pushed back and will continue to do so. We have armed ourselves. We've been training Minutemen and militia companies. And every step of the way, our attempts to express our rights as Englishmen have been taken away. This will not stand. An army has been sent here to control us, not to protect us. And now, on the Sabbath, this invasion of Salem is coming. This will not stand. This will not stand. We will go to the North River. We will raise the drawbridge. We will prevent Colonel Leslie and his men from crossing the river. If they wish to have a bloody massacre here in Salem, the blood will be on their hands.
They are coming as we knew they would be. The regulars caught our countrymen unawares when they seized the powder in Cambridge last fall, but that will not be the case today. I'm Captain David Mason, mechanic and artillerist, husband and father. My wife and I do all we can to keep our family safe, but she and our children take their own risks. Helping the other families feed, clothe, and supply the militias, going so far as to rolling our ammunition cartridges. They're in even more danger today, as our house is just by the bridge of the North River, right near the front lines. If I know Colonel Leslie, he means to have the guns we keep along the river. Or should I say, did keep. When the alarm came today, our farmers brought their ox carts and teams to drag the guns away off of North Salem. They're now bedded down under the oak leaves and gravel pits in the woods. Do you hear that? The fifes and drums. It's a merry tune, but it sings the song of pirates all the same.
Pull up the north side of the bridge. We need every hand.
Good day. Yes, I'm afraid I have cancelled divine service today. I would not countenance a break in our Sabbath were it not a pressing matter. It is well known that a great faction in our country, in this town, in my own congregation, by now will never submit to ministerial rule. My exhortations they obey authority mean nothing to them when they see this authority as mere arbitrary power, and so long as there are soldiers marching through the streets of Boston. And today those soldiers have come here, with Colonel Leslie and his regulars parading through the streets of Salem, marching towards North Bridge, and there goes Captain Felt and his militia, watching them like hawks, with scores of civilians in their train crowding around. God knows where this will end. But I know that I am a minister of the gospel, and my mission is peace. If those soldiers fire, provoked or not, it will be a greater massacre than the one 5 years ago, and it will instantly plunge our country into bloody war. It must not happen. I do not believe that I can reconcile these two foes, but we can bring them to negotiate. We must do everything we can with God's help to prevent them from shedding innocent blood.